Thank you so much for talking to us. This is a slightly peculiar, unusual way of doing an interview. Behind the gilded walls of Buckingham Palace, a document has emerged that could reshape the royal family forever. King Charles has just uncovered a hidden clause in his mother's will, one that directly concerns Prince Harry's inheritance. What the late Queen left behind has stunned the monarchy to its core. The discovery. The morning of November 23, 2025 began like any other in the private offices of Buckingham Palace. King Charles sat at the same mahogany desk where his mother had once conducted her most sensitive business, surrounded by leather-bound volumes and the weight of centuries of royal tradition. But what unfolded in that room over the next hour would send shock waves through the House of Windsor in ways no one could have anticipated. Charles had requested a comprehensive review of his mother's estate documents. More than 3 years had passed since Queen Elizabeth's demise in September 2022, and certain legal formalities required periodic attention. His Majesty's senior legal counsel, accompanied by the Keeper of the Privy Purse and 2 trusted advisers, had assembled what they believed to be a routine briefing. The king, dressed in his customary dark suit, his reading glasses perched on his nose, prepared himself for what he assumed would be tedious but necessary administrative work. The leather portfolio containing the relevant documents made a soft sound as it opened on the desk. Page after page detailed the distribution of assets, properties, and heirlooms exactly as Charles had understood them to be. The main provisions of the will had been executed according to protocol. Balmoral, Sandringham, the private jewelry collection. All had been allocated and transferred as expected. Charles had seen these documents before, or so he thought. Charles's hands, weathered but steady, broke the seal. The paper inside was in his mother's own hand, her distinctive script immediately recognizable. But this was not the flowing penmanship of her younger years. This was the writing of her final months, slightly shakier, but no less deliberate. The date at the top read March 15, 2022, just 6 months before her death. His breath caught as he began to read. The room fell into absolute silence. His advisers watched as their king's expression shifted from curiosity to surprise, then to something more complex. A mixture of emotions played across features that had learned long ago to remain composed in public. But this was not a public moment. This was a son reading his mother's final thoughts about his other son, the one who had left, the one whose absence had carved a wound through the family that refused to heal. The document before him contained a clause meticulously detailed and legally binding that addressed Prince Harry's inheritance in ways that contradicted everything Charles had understood about his mother's final wishes. Or perhaps more accurately, it revealed wishes she had deliberately kept hidden until this precise moment. The Queen, even in death, was still playing the long game, still thinking moves ahead, still trying to protect her family in ways they might not understand until the right time came. Charles read the passage 3 times. His legal counsel confirmed that the document was authentic, properly witnessed, and legally enforceable. There was no question of its validity. The only questions now were what to do with this information and how to proceed. Because the clause didn't simply leave Harry money or property. It contained conditions, stipulations, a framework that would require decisions, conversations, and potentially a complete reassessment of the current state of affairs between the king and his younger son. One of the advisers cleared his throat gently, breaking the silence. They needed to understand His Majesty's wishes on how to proceed. Did he want time to consider this privately? Should they begin preparing briefing documents for the relevant parties? The questions hung in the air, but Charles remained focused on his mother's words written in her final months, as she must have known her time was growing short. Charles set the document down and removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose in a gesture of profound weariness. He thought of his mother in her study at Windsor, composing these words in secret, telling no one, sealing them away with instructions that they should remain hidden until the right moment. Had she imagined this scene? Her eldest son, now king, discovering her hidden wishes and having to decide whether to honor them. Of course she had. Elizabeth had always thought everything through. The weight of the crown suddenly felt heavier than usual. Charles had inherited his mother's throne, her responsibilities, her burdens. But he had not anticipated inheriting her unsolved family crisis wrapped in legal provisions designed to force his hand. Yet that was precisely what sat before him now, a choice, or perhaps more accurately, a test. Would he honor his mother's clearly stated wishes, even if they complicated his own plans and preferences? Or would he find a way, as kings sometimes must, to interpret duty in a way that served the present rather than the past. His advisers waited. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked steadily. Outside, London continued its daily rhythm, unaware that inside these walls, a discovery had just been made that could alter the course of the House of Windsor. King Charles knew that whatever he decided at this moment, there would be no going back. His mother's hidden clause was hidden no longer, and now everyone would have to deal with the consequences. What the clause reveals. The document in Queen Elizabeth's hand specified an inheritance for Prince Harry that was both substantial and conditional, revealing a complexity to her final wishes that no one in the family had fully anticipated. The provision set aside approximately £20 million from her private estate. But the money was not simply gifted. It came wrapped in requirements that demonstrated just how carefully the late Queen had considered her grandson's future and the future of the monarchy itself. The first condition was explicit. Harry would receive full access to his inheritance only upon agreeing to maintain certain connections to the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. The Queen's language was precise. She required that he spend no fewer than 90 days per year on British soil or in Commonwealth nations, engaged in work that supported either charitable causes or initiatives that benefited communities across the realm. This was not a demand that he returned to working royal duties. Elizabeth had been too pragmatic for that, but it was a requirement that he remain meaningfully connected to the world she had spent 7 decades serving. The second provision addressed Harry's children, Archie and Leet. A portion of the inheritance, approximately £5 million, was designated specifically for their education and upbringing, but with stipulations. The funds were to be managed by trustees approved by both Harry and the reigning monarch, ensuring that Charles would have some oversight. More significantly, the Queen specified that the children should spend meaningful time in the United Kingdom as they grew older with the stated purpose of maintaining their connection to their heritage and their family. She had written that her great-grandchildren should not become strangers to the land of their ancestors. Perhaps most telling was a personal letter attached to the legal document written in the Queen's hand. It was addressed to Charles, intended to be read when the clause was discovered. In it, she acknowledged the difficulty of the situation with Harry.